Okay, very good. We are now live on YouTube for everyone's information. And Seth, if you could start us off, that would be great. Thanks, everybody.
Yeah, happy to. Good evening. Yeah, we're so glad that so many people can make it tonight. So the quick note, just as Gretchen said, we want to make you aware this is being recorded and streaming live on YouTube. My name is Seth Leonards. I work for the City of Salem in the Economic Development Department. And I'm joined today by a couple of my colleagues at the city and also representatives from the Mid-Willamette Valley Community Action. I also have a 1.5-year-old in the corner, so if you hear any funny noises, that's what that is. Don't worry, mom will be home at 6:30, which is always music to a dad's ears. So we're happy to, we're here tonight to provide an overview of the temporary shelter at 2640 Portland Road. Sometimes we refer to it as the Zamora site. And the goal is to share the project, share information about the project, and then answer any questions that folks have. We'll begin with some brief remarks by Gretchen Bennett, who's with the City of Salem, and then we'll hear from Lindsay Dent with the Mid-Willamette Valley Community Action Agency with the Arches Project, and that's the organization who'll be handling day-to-day operations. At that point, we'll be happy to welcome questions. Everyone made it into the room, so I think we must be kind of okay with working with Zoom at this point. But basically, there's a raise hand feature. So if you go to, at the bottom of your screen, there may be a raise hand feature there, or if you go to participants, participants at the bottom, or chat at the bottom, there'll be an option that you can raise your hand. So are folks finding that?
It's under reactions.
Reactions for you? Okay. Yep, so if you do a little raise hand, then that'll just put you in order and we can go through from there. And yeah, Tom's found the clapping, so that's good. Yeah, any item there we'll know. So thanks everyone for trying that out. If that doesn't work for you, you can also just turn your camera on and give us a wave, and we will add your name to the list. And then there's also, if you would feel more comfortable submitting it in writing, there's a chat window and there's a drop down to, and you can direct that to me, that's Seth Leonards, and you can ask that question right there. And I'll ask the question, or you can just type your name in. And, you know, for example, I'm seeing like a Kristen Rutherford, you can just type in Kristen and then I'll add you to the list. Yeah, and then like I said, if there's an issue, just wave. We will hand raises in the order we see them and then call on folks from there. And at that point, remember to mic and camera on if you want to ask a question. In the interest of time, we just ask that people be brief in their comments and questions. If it goes beyond 3 minutes, you know, we'll kind of make a note that you're going a little long, and if you continue to go, we can mute people's microphones. And please, this is a public meeting. We just ask that everyone be respectful. Don't engage in inappropriate speech, hate speech, anything like that. That won't be permitted here. And then any further public comment that isn't related directly to this project or about the project can be shared with the city via by contacting following this meeting. So again, I thank everyone for coming here, taking the time to meet with us this evening. So I'm going to start with Gretchen from the city, who's going to give a little bit of a higher level overview. Lindsay will jump into more of the site specifics.
Terrific. Thank you, Seth, and thanks everybody for being here tonight. As a lot of you may already be aware, the city is working closely with the City of Kaiser and Marion and Polk counties addressing a real regional crisis in issues with a lack of services and shelter for people, our unsheltered neighbors here in Salem. It's a significant issue for our community in the Mid-Willamette Valley. The city recently conducted a survey of hearing from the community, and the issue around homelessness rose as the top issue of concern and question by our city residents. We're aware roughly of about 1,500 people in the region that are without shelter, that are homeless. Of those, about 300 roughly are able to access a shelter bed on any given night. And then there's perhaps another 200 people that are estimated to be sleeping in vehicles of some kind. The numbers of shelter services grow to a degree during the warming season, which brings us to the project that we're talking about tonight. We're also, before we speak specifically about why we're here tonight, the city is also researching a number of additional sheltering locations, looking for how to expand shelter options and housing options for that matter, affordable housing, and also a project that's called permanent supportive housing. Our most recent effort through the Salem Housing Authority opened up a site on Fisher Road for a supportive housing complex that's serving 37 people right now, for example. But tonight we're here to talk about the concept at Portland Road. The city, in the agency with urban renewal, acquired the property and is looking to lease the space to the Mid-Willamette Valley Community Action Agency for the possible operation of a shelter. So with that, I wanted to welcome and introduce Lindsay, who will be able to talk about some of the specific ideas for the space.
Thank you, Gretchen. Good evening, everybody. Hopefully you can hear me. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen and present just basically a 10-minute presentation overview of the project that we're working on over at Portland Road, and then open the floor for some questions. Let's see here. Hopefully this will work. Okay, so hopefully everybody can see my screen. And the first little bit of housekeeping here is that please mute. We will do the question and answer portion of the presentation after the presentation. And then just kind of jump right in here. Let's see. All right, so this slide here is a general overview of what sheltering services looks like for chronically homeless people in this community or in this region. And that really ranges from unmanaged camps or the sanctioned camping like out at Wallace Marine Park or Cascade Gateway Park, all the way to, like Gretchen had referenced, which is really the ultimate goal of permanent supportive housing, like the Redwood Crossing project. So with unmanaged camps, what we do is we have coordinated outreach teams throughout the community that go into the camps to make sure that everybody receives a comprehensive assessment to determine if those persons are available, or excuse me, eligible for some housing resources, or if they need to be put on a waiting list for future opportunities to housing. What we're going to really dive into today is the winter duration warming over on Portland Road, and in the city of Salem, we also have one more on State Street, and that's really targeted for vulnerable populations within the homeless community. So what the Salem Warming Network is, it's comprised of various community partners, Mid-Willamette Valley Community Action Agency, as well as some faith-based organizations, which provide an activation bed for people that are living outside in the elements. So what that means is when it's cold, when temperatures reach 32 degrees or below, or if there's other extreme weather events, then there's 3 different particular churches in town, and we're looking to expand that open their doors for people regardless of their barriers. And it's really a measure of a life-saving event. The mission really of the Salem Warming Network is to save lives. And so the duration piece of the Salem Warming Network is nightly, rather than activating only when temperatures are freezing or when there's an extreme weather event. It is open nightly. So this project over on Portland Road really began based on the House Bill 4212 and the emergency declaration in the city regarding sheltering services. So we have applied with the city and requested that we receive the declaration, or approval rather, to utilize that facility, and we're providing the services for that based on that House bill. So this project will be comprised of paid staff. We do have trained volunteers that we rely on for our activation sites, but for our Portland Road location of the duration, the nightly shelter will be all paid staff, as well as security and some administrative oversight. What we mean by low barrier is we want to remove any barriers possible that would prevent somebody from seeking any shelter services. So oftentimes this is married couples or people that have pets, or sometimes maybe somebody couldn't pass a clean drug screening, a urinalysis. We're not going to require those things in order to receive services, because again, this is a life-saving endeavor that we are trying to achieve. So we really go, but based on a behavioral-based model. If they're following the program expectations and not harming themselves or others, not stealing, not actively using on the site, then we do everything we can to try to encourage people to stay in the program. And then of course, the biggest piece right now in this season of unprecedented times is the adaptations due to COVID. And we'll get further into that. I wanted to share here a couple of snapshots of what our data looks like across the city. So what you see on the left side, that image is the number of individuals that were counted on the last Wednesday in January of 2019. Each year, the community has what's called a PIT, or a point in time homeless count, the last Wednesday of January. And in 2019, they determined that there's roughly 30 individuals residing in the direct neighborhood that are unsheltered. We believe to be true that homelessness in that community and other communities throughout Salem has increased significantly. We don't have the statistics, but I imagine, and I'll be interested to find out what that will look like this coming January 21 as we do the surveys. On the right side here, you have the City of Salem map, and it really just is a key to go over what service provider and sheltering opportunities that already are existing in the city. So you see here that upper corner, that's the yellow dot at that intersection, is the Portland Road site that we're talking about. All right, so back to how people participate in this particular program. We, like I had mentioned, if people come into our Arches Day Center seeking housing opportunities, or if they are homeless and our outreach team goes and assesses them for housing opportunities, they're put into a coordinated entry system. And if they're not eligible for a particular opportunity, they're put onto the waiting list. So what we do is we will pull people that have had an assessment within the past 6 months and are elderly, meaning over 65 years old, and have chronic health conditions. So that could mean cancer, heart conditions, diabetes, etc. So this particular project is going to put a preference of participation for those particular individuals, the most vulnerable, that may very well die if they didn't have access to a warm bed at night. So after that, we determine placement and make sure that the participants are interested in the service, make sure that they agree to the expectation, and we'll enroll them for up to 29 consecutive days. At that time, we're going to look at a variety of factors. We're going to staff the situation and determine if they are eligible to re-enroll for another 29 days, or if they maybe weren't a good fit because we've had some neighbor complaints or there's been other concerns where we would maybe need to not extend their stay. All right, and COVID-19 is the big hot button topic this year. And so other than doing the basics of making sure everybody's socially distanced, everybody's wearing their face masks unless, which we've had OHA approval, unless people are on their mat sleeping. Some extra precautions we're taking is to have dividers between each mat, and we're removing some hospitality areas where people would normally go to drink coffee, just to avoid that congregation as much as possible and keep people safe. The biggest change we're going to do is every single person, staff, people, volunteers, and clients will have to submit to a COVID questionnaire as well as a temperature screening at least once per day. And so if people have a temperature of 100 degrees and COVID symptoms, and we suspect that there may be symptomatic, then they will be immediately isolated. And we have partnerships with transportation so that they can go into a COVID isolation hotel. From there, they'll be wrapped around, we'll wrap around services so that they receive COVID testing and other supports to nurse them back to health and, of course, prevent any potential spread in the community. That's really pretty much it. We rely on volunteers for the programs that we're doing with our warming network. Definitely check out our social media to continue to stay updated, and we have some positions open as well. If you happen to have questions after our presentation here today, our discussion, then you are more than welcome to email me. And I think with that, Gretchen, if you're ready to take back the floor, I appreciate it. Thank you all.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Lindsay. And Seth, did you have anything to add before we jump into Q&A?
I'm good. Did we get into like the duration? Did we get into like some of the big facts of the site? Gretchen, did you cover that in yours?
Well, let's make sure the site is imagined to open on or about December 1st and to conclude March 31st. It's a temporary location. The maximum time for usage of the site is 18 months, and it's contemplated right now to be 2 warming seasons. So this winter and then next winter, and then no longer be used for this purpose. This is a temporary use of the space.
Right, for a maximum up to 18 months. And like you said, it'll be 2 different winter seasons only. So I don't know, for me, it's like easy to think about this stuff in like a who, what, where, when, why kind of say things. So I think we're looking at seniors who've had assessments and have chronic health conditions can use the site. It's a temporary overnight shelter, looking between like December through the end of March. Lindsay, is that right? The 4-month period. And basically, I mean, the intent of this is to save lives. Due to COVID-19, we've lost a high number of shelter beds, and we have an increased number of people who are homeless. And you had this at the state level passing a bill that allowed it easier for cities and communities like ours to create sites like this. And then also the city has passed an emergency declaration regarding sheltering and regarding homelessness. So that also kind of facilitated the creation of this project. But yeah, I think we open it to the floor, and I think, Gretchen, are you gonna run questions, and I will keep an eye on the participant list?
Yes, absolutely. So if you'd like to let us know if you have a question by raising that little hand or turning on your camera and showing us with a wave, that would be great. I don't see any hands up though, so we're not being flooded with a million. Oh, there's one from Bradley. Bradley, let's start with you.
Yeah, I just, I'm kind of listening to you guys talk about this. Do we have an idea how many people are going to be here? In some of the information I've read, it said they're going to make space for 20 tents, 20 vehicles, and 25 people indoors. Is that correct?
That's correct in the largest potential activation. The current project would begin with about 25 people indoors. And then if resources would allow, it would expand in the way you described. Lindsay, that's a question I really should direct to you. Is there anything you'd change about that?
Yeah, thanks, Bradley. I would just add that, yes, we're definitely slated to start in December with 25 indoor shelter spaces. And then we're looking to really make sure that our resources are in place, that everything is aligned as they should, and we'll phase in other pieces of the project when it's applicable. So yes, I think you're correct, Gretchen. Thank you.
I think the next hand I saw was Kathy, if I pronounced that correctly, I'm sorry. And please unmute your microphone. We can't quite hear you yet. I'm sorry, we're still able to unhear you or not hear you. I'm looking at Kathy Mentrum.
How about now?
Yes, now I can hear you. Thank you.
Great. I was just wondering, what kind of people are going to be using tents? Because that's kind of cold, isn't it? And do you have heaters in the tents? Are they the mothers with the children, or are they the seniors? Who are getting the house, and who's getting the tents, and who's getting the RV?
Yeah, I think
Lindsay.
that's a very excellent question. Yes, thank you. So that's one of the things that we've considered about really, is it resourceful to have people out in the cold in a tent when that's really what we're trying to prevent altogether? So at this stage, what we're looking to do is take those most vulnerable that I had identified of the individuals that are elderly and have chronic health conditions for the indoor sheltering. Once we determine a pathway forward, we would make announcements on what that would look like. We want to make sure that aligns with the pandemic that we're all facing right now, as well as making sure we're staying with that mission of saving lives and not making anybody more at risk.
Okay. And when it's cold outside during the day, where are they going to be?
Yeah, so we have day sheltering opportunities, and we have transportation available for people to receive services at the Arches Project so that they can receive a meal, they can receive a laundry, shower, as well as navigation to other services and housing opportunities. So it's the expectation that they are not on site during the day, and that will be made clear to them, as well as we'll have security to help with that. But we do encourage people to participate in other day sheltering opportunities.
And one more question. I'm sorry, Marlene. I have is the fence. I understand you're going to have everything so that you can't see through. Is that correct on the cyclone fence?
Yes, I'm sorry for that pause. We are planning on putting a fence around the perimeter of the property. And Seth, I wonder if you could describe what the fence is imagined to be. You might be able to describe that a little better than me, or Clint.
Sure, yeah, so it's a 6-foot high cyclone fencing that will have a mesh screening over it. I think the best way to describe it is if you've gone by like a construction site, kind of tall fence, well, they'll have some sort of screen over it. That should be sight obscuring.
And Kathy, I need to jump to the other people on the list, but I'd be happy to come back to you if you have further questions. I've got Tom next. Or Thomas, sorry.
All right, well, thank you very much. I may have missed this from earlier conversation, but two things come to mind. One is sanitation, human waste sanitation, porta potties, in other words, and how many units there might be, and how often will that be taken care of as things fill up during the week. And the second part of it is security, the security of those who stay there from others on the outside who are not homeless. And among the homeless themselves, of course, I've witnessed infighting and whatnot. So sanitation and security are my two questions.
Thank you. I'll invite Lindsay to talk about both of those.
So regarding sanitation, we have to, when we're providing the service, part of the House Bill and the emergency declaration is that we do have to provide sanitation in restrooms. So there'll be at least a minimum of 3 restrooms available to people when services are operational. And I apologize, Thomas, could you repeat the second part of your question?
Has to do with security, both for the people in there as a collective unit of homeless that night, let's say during the evening times, but also among the homeless themselves. They often tend to fight, as I have observed from time to time. So it means how do you solve squabbles that get out of hand with fist fight, whatever, that kind of thing.
Yeah. So there's a couple of approaches for that, right? So we will have security available and on site as part of this project. We have an established relationship with a security company, and they will be providing supports for us, as well as we do have trained staff available to de-escalate situations as they come up, or address situations at the lowest level possible. So the idea is we do not want people to have to get go to jail or get law enforcement involved. That's really what we want to try to avoid here. But when it's necessary, our staff know when it would be appropriate to get law enforcement. So we'll do everything we can to address conflicts, as well as any inappropriate behaviors.
But are you saying there's going to be on-site manager of sorts to be an overseer of that during the evening or whenever the homeless people are there?
Yeah, so there will always be paid staff on site in the evenings when we're providing services.
Okay.
Thank you. The next person we have is Carly Lair. Carly, if you can unmute and ask your question, that would be great.
Hey, thank you. So I was just, my husband and I both, so Joshua Lair is my husband, and we were both wondering, who do you work with when you're assessing folks for eligibility in regards to identifying chronic health conditions?
Lindsay.
Oh, okay, yeah. So all of our comprehensive assessments are based on what the client identifies. So we're not going to go to extreme lengths to determine if somebody's, eligible for a particular disability. However, we do also ask the question and we receive information if there is a verified disability that that person has. So it is self-identified as well as some follow-ups, a little bit of both.
Thank you. The next person I have is Bradley, followed by Marlene.
Yeah, so a quick question here on, I mean, you were very careful to note, I can't remember who it was doing the little presentation there, that you said you have a preference for vulnerable, which doesn't preclude non-vulnerable populations. I mean, to what extent is there a guarantee that this won't just turn into, you know, just a storage facility for, people that aren't, vulnerable?
Lindsay, why don't you take that one too?
Yeah, so I'll do the best I can to answer. I think the first thing to know is that we do have to adhere to fair housing laws. So we can never completely exclude somebody from receiving a housing opportunity. We can provide preferences to particular individuals. So in this case, it's people that are elderly and have chronic health conditions. I think that in knowing the demographics within the community, I really do not personally believe that we're going to come across a lot of young, able-bodied individuals residing in the emergency shelter this season. I just think that the need is really great, and people really, from my personal experience, I'm just speaking personally, people really want to feel safe at night and they want a warm bed. And it's been my experience that there are far better situations than the bad apples that might ruin the whole barrel, if you will.
Oh, sure. I mean, I can totally understand this need to feel safe. I mean, but I have, I'm out in front of my house, which I'm across the street from this facility, or where it will be. And I've had, our parking lot where we're at, there's a lot of homeless that traffic through here. I have been cussed at and yelled at by these people. They have been sleeping in our planters. They have been leaving garbage in our planters. I would know. I walk around and pick it up. Some of these are, contain bits of used toilet paper with excrement. It's filthy. It's disgusting. We have these people, toggling on our door handles in our evenings. There's a lot of people with a Zoom video of this happening. And, what I'm kind of gathering from this, especially what concerns me is after this 29-day period, and it's not specifically a guarantee that it's just vulnerable populations, but if these people are made to leave for a day, where do they go? To what extent are we guaranteed as, a community around this place that they're not just going to be released to their own devices in our backyards, and if they have their possessions, where do they take them? Are they going to be, setting them up? Because there's a lot of, parking lot spaces and businesses and stuff around here that I have been talking to that are, kind of leery of that.
Maybe Lindsay, do you have a response?
I just want to clarify the question. Is the question really where are people and their belongings going to be in the day, or how are we going to?
Well, it's after this 29-day period, where
Okay.
where are they going to go after that? And like I said, given the high number of issues that anecdotally I have seen, I know I am constantly assured that statistically speaking, this is anomalous and that it's not really an issue, but it's not been my experience. Like I said, I've stood out front. I have been yelled at by these people in on my own property. I've had them yelling at me at my neighbor's property and leaving garbage and stuff everywhere. So like I said, I just want to make sure that, this isn't, just opening up an avenue for people to traffic our areas, to leave garbage around, to, providing an opportunity for easy crime and that sort of stuff. And to me, I'm seeing if there's no guarantee that this is only vulnerable populations, that it can attract a number of other people out here, to traffic our area.
Yeah, and I think quite frankly, Bradley, you're absolutely right. There is no guarantee of that. And we can only, as far as our agency is concerned, we have responsibility over the participants in the project. And so getting, updates or communication from neighbors and other business owners in the area would be important if they know that it's somebody that's within the, that's enrolled in the program. And I think that, just empathizing with that situation, it's got to be frustrating. And at the same time, there's just simply not adequate housing opportunities in the community. There just isn't. And so I can't guarantee that people, if they are not enrolled in our program, will sleep somewhere that's habitable.
I need to interject there, Bradley. Thank you. We can take your questions again, but I need to switch over to Marlene. I apologize if I'm saying your name wrong, but go ahead and please unmute.
I have a question because on what is it called? Is that Ferry Road or whatever it is, on your way to off of Silverton Road, where they are supposed to be building housing for those people that are in great need of housing, that are homeless. I haven't heard anything about how that's been going. We also have on Portland Road some cottages. Well, I think they used to be motels that they've remodeled. Can that be used for housing? I think that my idea is that why isn't the city council working on permanent housing? This kind of a thing. I'm really wondering why, after all this time, we're building up for these little, postage stamp things, which I know that you guys can only do what you can do. But our city council has definitely not stepped up to the plate. And we've elected again, without any competition, a mayor who doesn't seem, I hope this time, I'm looking forward to some changes, but I don't know if that's going to happen. Do you have anything to say on that?
I can sure do my best. You raised some significant policy strategy questions and observations. I have been recognizing the number of strategies that have been underway to build more affordable housing, as well as units that, for example, are in the stock with Salem Housing Authority. They have hundreds of properties that they've been utilizing for people with vouchers. Mm-hmm. And then there's effort underway to identify the funding partners to be able to build more places like the one we opened on Fisher Road over the summer. There's no doubt that what you're saying is true, in that we need a system of supportive housing measures, affordable housing, and that stock needs to grow. There's a number of economical factors that went into that, but those strategies are also underway. If I could ask you to think of it as not mutually exclusive, but we're working full steam on all of those efforts. And in the meantime, have discovered a sheltering crisis and people who are going to be cold this winter. Go right ahead.
Okay.
Yeah.
I want to say one more thing, that a lot of people, because of their criminal background checks and all of this stuff, never gives them, and I have met some of these people and talked to them, and I think, my gosh, they need a chance to get a job and to have housing. And yet they're blocked by legislative requirements. Those do not seem constitutionally right. People should always be getting a second chance. What is your thoughts on that? And how are we working to correct that very criminal law?
Well, thank you. I would point your attention, and anyone who's interested on that, to the Marion County Reentry Initiative is one example. That's an area and a strategy that's working hard to try to remove barriers and assist people who have done their time and paid their debt to society, and now we're working hard to take steps. Thank you. I appreciate that. I'm going to go next to Thomas, if that's okay. And then I have, it says Carly Lair, but I think that's Josh there. So we're going to go Thomas and then Josh.
Well, you know, one of the things that bring to mind the biggest concerns for a homeless camp in the area here in Northgate is, of course, trash, litter, waste of all kinds, and not just on that site, but of course, up and down the streets and elsewhere, parks, other businesses. One example I can tell you about is Walgreens store down at Fairview, what's that, Fairgrounds Road, Portland Road turns into Fairgrounds Road. And then, but that Walgreens parking lot is a big mess. And oftentimes when I'm there, there's homeless people or seeming homeless people there. And I might watch them for a minute or two and see them litter and so forth. They're not the only ones. Obviously, customers do the same thing. But generally, roadways that become an eyesore because of the litter and so forth, is there going to be maybe garbage cans and that kind of thing along the roadways for the homeless to use, and or maybe a road cleanup crew that can clean up after the homeless people have littered our area and neighborhoods.
Tom, thank you. I'll make a note of the overall street clean question that you have and see what I can learn about what kind of services our public works team does right now and can do. I know that the Community Action Agency is going to provide trash receptacles on site at the Portland Road location, but you're asking a broader question about the roads. So let me check on that. I know in general, we strive to keep our public areas clean, and then it would fall to the property owners of those areas, like Walgreens, for example, on their parking lot, to pick up trash at their lot.
Well, if I'm
But
eating a
I'll
candy
try to learn
bar
more
and I'm
about
walking down Portland Road, where do I put the waste paper? It goes onto the street if I'm homeless, probably, I guess, but that kind of thing,
And the street, generally, we have street clean trucks that'll drive
Something's
through all of
wrong.
our streets in a general area. Yeah. Okay, Josh, I think I've got you next.
So I just want to say, for some of the questions that have been going on, being with Be Bold Street Ministries as well as with the LEAD program with Marion County, and being involved with the homeless community for on the streets every single day for, I don't know, the last 6 years. Arches, where I have a county office in their building, Arches does a really good job just trying to maybe give some people a little bit of ease in regards to the garbage and things like that. If you drive by Arches, there is staff out amongst the individuals being served all day long, making sure that not only does the parking lot look good, but the individuals being served are being taken care of. My wife and I live right downtown. I have the folks that we serve walk in front of my home every single day. And it is an opportunity as somebody that lives in this neighborhood to befriend our neighbors. They are our neighbors. And so it's a great opportunity to come alongside people and share and be kind. I do think that every single individual that is on the streets that is not sheltered is a vulnerable population. So I'm super thankful that you guys are not just keeping it with those that are elderly or women with children. Obviously, they should be served first. But every individual that is out on the streets is vulnerable. It's going to be cold. Every year we lose people to the weather. And so you guys having the idea and the opportunity to provide 25 more beds is amazing. So I thank you guys, the city of Salem, Arches, Community Action, for what you guys are doing. Please keep up the good work. And any trash cans you need, Be Bold will provide. We will provide the trash bags, whatever you guys need. Thank you so much for your heart for those that are on the streets.
Josh, thank you for your comment. I've got Lori, Bradley, and then Kathy. So Lori, if you want to unmute.
Well, it's so nice to see Lindsay, because I don't think I've met you before, but welcome welcome. And Josh, thanks so much. I would just like to say I'm an advocate for these folks. I volunteered with Arches for 6 years. I've worked with unsheltered homeless population for many years. I retired from 30 years at the state hospital. So a lot of these folks are people that I work with in the state hospital. Now, one of the things I'd like to say in defense, not that I'm a defender of city council, but in defense of the city council, is that the state mental health system is very broken. The state about 4.5 to 5 years ago now cut the funding for group homes for the mentally ill. So a lot of the really very vulnerable population who I work with at the state hospital are now a lot of the folks on the streets. And to me too, they're vulnerable like other people with other illnesses. But the main thing that I like to say is I don't like using the term these people, because the reality is most people are 2 months away from homelessness, money-wise, bank-wise. These people are us. They are all somebody's loved one somewhere. They're somebody's child, sibling, parent, aunt or uncle. And you never know when it's going to be that one person at a warming center or Be Bold Ministries or someone that someone comes in contact with, that you may be that one person that helps change that person's life and moves forward. So even as neighbors, a smile, a hello, waving at somebody, those are the things. Most folks are usually more scared of strangers than we need to be of them in most cases. And I'm just very thankful for this program opening up. I'm very thankful people will have a place to go. I am concerned about the traffic at that intersection, but I think it'll be a great program. I think Arches will do a good job with it. I want to believe that. And maybe I'll help with it too.
Lori, thank you. I've got
Thanks.
Bradley, Kathy, Wendy, and then Corey. Bradley, if you want to unmute.
Yeah. So I know when I asked you this by email, and I remember your answer, but I know this is all kind of falling under emergency use and kind of quickly getting this stuff together. But like I said, I mean I see this going into kind of a more residential neighborhood. Granted, somebody's just mentioning that they're downtown and how well kept this is downtown. I mean, it's not necessarily a residential area downtown, but it is close out to where we are. And I'm still just confused as to why it's going there as opposed to like I mentioned, the fairgrounds. I mean, it seems like that is a way bigger area, more suited for holding vehicles, holding tents. You've got lots of buildings with indoor space that would be way more spacious. I mean, if there's anything we know about COVID, there's a lot of information this thing is airborne. And when you're talking about vulnerable populations holding inside, I've seen the DMV building. 25 people is a lot of people, especially if you have heated air blowing around. COVID can get in the air. It's not extremely spacious. You're holding vulnerable population, which we know are more vulnerable to dying to COVID. And again, like to me, it seems like the fairgrounds is really a better place for something like this, given the space, the excess buildings. Why not that? Why the DMV?
Thank you for asking. That's a great question, Bradley. And the fairgrounds is a location that's owned and operated by our state of Oregon and the fairgrounds. I'm currently actively in a conversation with representatives from the state of Oregon about the fairgrounds and a number of other properties that they own to see if that location or other locations that they operate could be suitable locations and workable for the sheltering needs of Salem. We don't have that idea progressed or have a yes from them at this time. So we aren't able to activate it right now. But in this case, this particular property was available for purchase and through the Urban Renewal Agency, and so this one became doable. But we're actively looking for additional sheltering location opportunities. So thank you. Stay tuned on that one is what I'd say. Kathy, I've got you next. Kathy, Wendy, and then Corey.
Okay, I'm going to change places with my husband. He's the acting chair of Northgate, and this 2640 Portland Road lies right in Northgate. So I would like for him to have something to say.
Okay, thank you. We appreciate that. Glad he could be here with us tonight.
Okay, thanks.
Hi, I'm Bayard Mentrum, and a few questions. One on the fairgrounds. What is going on partly with that right now is the EPA is cleaning up waste, hazardous waste from the fires. So it's already being used for that at the moment. So it's going to be hard to make it for the homeless right now.
13.
Yes. Yeah. Another question is, we heard that there are going to be 13 other shelter locations throughout the city. Do anybody know where they are and when that's happening?
Thank you. We'd be happy to maybe reshare that slide if that would be helpful. I think the number 13 might come from our Salem safe parking network. There are 13 locations that are different faith-based organizations have activated to allow for vehicle camping in their parking lots. And that's a partnership with the city of Salem where porta potty and trash receptacles are provided. And those are throughout the city. And we're on the map that Lindsay displayed during her PowerPoint presentation. There's also 3 temperature activated sheltering sites that exist in Salem that will open when the temperature hits 32 degrees at 3 additional locations. And then there's also a site contemplated that would be open for the duration of the cold season, and that would be over on State Street. And then of course there's the traditional shelter system in Salem, which includes the Union Gospel Mission and others as well.
Okay.
Did that answer your question?
Yes, thanks.
Of course.
One other kind of a suggestion as part of what others are saying is back in the 30s and 20s, people had housing, and the habitants that were brought in, homeless people, for instance, they were given work like cleaning up litter, for instance, and getting paid for it, or making things, or growing gardens. And they had a sense of self-esteem because they're actually doing something besides just wandering the streets. And I don't know if there's any action in the council or anywhere that's promoting that kind of idea, and they don't have to keep moving around here and there and everywhere instead of having some kind of stable location.
I appreciate that. Thank you. I'm aware of one example that council has supported. It's nicknamed Cash for Trash, and it's a program to help people who are camping currently in one of the 2 undeveloped areas of 2 parks are able to submit trash from their personal campsite in exchange for a gift card. And it's our effort to keep have a strategy around the personal camp areas. And so that's maybe one example that gets a little bit into what you're talking about. It's not as complex as what you're describing. I've read some impressive programs along those lines. I might see, Lindsay, if you had anything to add to that kind of approach.
I actually was thinking of Cash for Trash as well. So I think that that's a great relevant current event that's happening in partnership with the city right now.
Thank you. We'll go next to Wendy and then Corey. So Wendy, if you want to unmute.
Thank you. Really nervous to say anything. I hadn't really planned on it. And I very much do not want to come across as though I'm sounding unsympathetic to the homeless population in any way, shape, or form. My question really kind of tags on to the question that Bradley asked just a moment ago. I live in a townhome community. I'm one of 12 to 24 homes that are directly across the street. My front door will be less than a football field away from the shelter. It has caused me to decide that the first week or 2 of April, whenever this homeless shelter will be cleaned up, I'm going to be putting my home on the market. My question really is very, very broad, but I really am just curious to know why you chose such a residential neighborhood for this.
Thank you. I don't know that it's necessarily a choice for a residential neighborhood so much as generally a scarcity of properties that become available. I've just in the work I've been doing been struck by the real challenge in locating a building in a facility or a parcel of land that's available and usable for the purposes. And so I think it's not so much choosing amongst many delightful options, but finally discovering something that might work. Clint Dameron is my coworker, and he might have something to add to that. He's worked with property acquisition at the city. Clint, I don't know if you're listening, if you could if there's anything you'd suggest to add.
Hi, yeah, thank you, Gretchen. You know, the city and the agency just don't have that much property around town. As everybody kind of thinks the city has all this property laying around, there's really not a whole lot. We were in the process of acquiring this property. It's been almost 2.5 years now, and due to environmental issues, it's taken quite a while. And then, as Gretchen mentioned, this opportunity for the use came about until we decide how the property redevelops in the long term. But I know, and Gretchen, you can probably speak more to this, as the city approached, you know, numerous private owners of parking lots, of vacant buildings, you know, say, can you help shelter people or vehicles? And as far as I know, Gretchen, everybody pretty much said thank you, but no. You know, so there's not a lot of options available, as one might think, around town.
Too bad about it.
Thank you. Wendy, yeah, okay, thank you. I've got Corey next, and then Bradley.
Hi there. I'm the chair of the Semken Neighborhood Association adjacent to Cascade Gateway Park. So we're experiencing some of the Salem's homeless crisis kind of acutely right now. I'm really excited to see this shelter opportunity opening, and I actually think Salem does need about 12 or 13 more shelters at the scope of what you're putting out on Portland Road. We would love to have something like this in our neighborhood instead of the current situation that exists in Cascade Gateway Park. I just wondered if I'm disheartened to hear that it took 2 years to buy this property when we need so much more like this in the area. Are you actively looking at new sites? Can you give, I mean, I know you can't tell us where you would be looking or anything like that, but are there proposed sites that would like quadruple or add, you know, an order of magnitude more operations like this?
Yes, I'm looking at property that is owned, for example, by the state, talking with people who own private property, studying the city land, you know, as you and I have talked about, what does the city have that it can bring to the table? And I've also been conducting a capacity assessment with our nonprofit operators to kind of do some matchmaking and see, okay, what land parcels are available, and then what nonprofits would be available to provide operations, and what does everybody need? Is it money? Is it operating funds? Is it the land? And trying to piece that together. There's a request before City Council Monday evening for finance to help with operating and providing opportunity for shelter operations. So everything that I'm working on is still very much in an early development phase. This one is more progressed. And then of course, there's also the State Street site that is potentially reopening. There's a question before City Council on Monday that relates to State Street and the zoning question that we have with that property. So yeah, it's an active project for me.
So we can safely say that no particular part of town is being singled out as a destination for these facilities, and no part of town is being singled out as an exclusion of these facilities.
Yes. Yes.
So really anything is on the table. It's just a matter of finding the property.
Correct.
Okay.
Yes. Yes.
Thank you.
Okay, of course, Corey, thank you. I've got Bradley and then Marlene.
Yeah, so quick, just curious, like how Have any of you that have lived by one of these facilities and know what it's like? I mean, just to kind of gauge, because uh, to echo Wendy, I also live in the same group of townhomes. I am right across the street from this, and I'm curious to see what the anecdotal information is from people that have lived across there. I mean, I'm hearing a lot of really disassociated language from the council and all these other people here that it's kind of like, well, this area, it exists on a map, and for me, it's my home. Uh, what are the experiences living around this, or do any of you have any of that to share?
Bradley, before I turn it to others who might have a comment on that, my only personal experience comes from living in Seattle in the University of Washington district and having some personal experience. But I do want to go back and pause both with your remark and also with Wendy's and say, I'm really sorry for how you're feeling and the significance of a decision like thinking about putting your house on the market. I can't imagine that would be something that you would want to do. And
Well, and
I
also I'm about
certainly,
to cut a check for $2,600 in property taxes. So yeah,
whew,
I mean, a little bit upset, that I'm paying this in property taxes. Our sidewalks don't get fixed for 2 years after requesting, but we are going to get a homeless camp across the street. And I'll be a lot less charitable than Wendy when I say that I'm not happy about it, because I have seen what they've done to downtown. I've seen what they're doing to the Willamette River. I have family. A lot of people feel unsafe going downtown, certainly being out at night. So yeah, no, I'm definitely more happy to be a lot less charitable for it. But I am curious, like I said, the experiences, and like I said, I definitely get the feeling that this is a space on a map for you guys. But do you live around this? Do you have experiences with it?
Yes, we
thanks.
do.
I'm wondering if Kristen is wanting to offer. Kristen, are you wanting to reply or did you have a question?
No, just a couple of things, because I mean, while residentially we don't live there, the urban development department is directly across the street from the Union Gospel Mission. We have daily experience with living around an unsheltered population and also folks that are living within a shelter situation. And there are definitely differences that I see between those individuals who are residing within the shelter and those that are unsheltered or camping on the streets. And we need to keep in mind that what is we're proposing here is a managed shelter operation, which operates very differently than street camping or camping in the parks in an unmanaged environment. So what we see with the Union Gospel Mission is that they come out and they do walk around and clean up trash and interact with individuals and work to connect them with services. And that's a very different experience, I think, than a situation where there is no staff management like we're proposing here. Another thing that I just wanted to re-emphasize is that the property, the DMV property, is a property that the Urban Renewal Agency has been working to acquire for redevelopment. And there is the environmental issue that is resulting in the 18-month time limit. This is a DEQ requirement that we not use it for housing or shelter more than an 18-month period. So I am very sympathetic to those residing in the area and the concerns that you have, but do want to offer just that piece of information that this is not the city saying that it will only be 18 months. This is a DEQ restriction on the property that will not allow us to continue the operation more than 18 months. So I just want to make sure that was clearly understood.
Kristen, thank you. I really appreciate that's an important clarification. I've got Bradley and then Marlene and then Kathy. So Bradley, go ahead.
Oh no, I had a chance. I'll let somebody else. That's but I appreciate that. Thank you.
Of course. Marlene.
I just wanted to say that two things. That where I work is at Walgreens, and I see a lot of people come in, and I know a lot of the homeless in that area and their conditions. Some of them are in meth, some of them are in heroin and meth, and some of them are just mentally ill. So and some of them are just old, sick, and can't get a job. And a lot of them have criminal backgrounds and have said they can't get housing or a job. So there's a vast, I mean, it's very mixed. But I will say if they have an opportunity, I've had people come in and say that they have gotten help from the organizations like Arches and whatever, and they're going to get a home. And they said they've been on a list for a long time, and they're crying. They're so excited that they got this opportunity. And I think, wow, that works. If they have security, number one, and they've got security forces and they've got rules and regulations, they're going to do better. And they've got people there 24 hours. They are like children, many of them, and they do need to have a structure. These people don't have structures, so they have to learn to follow orders and have a structure in their life. So I think this is much better than just letting them on the streets go where they want. I think you're going to find that it's not as bad as you think. And in humanity, we have to reach out to people that are in need. I mean, that's just, to me, that's worrying about, well, it's not comfortable for me, or I'm paying more taxes. We're all paying a lot of taxes. But I think that this could be a positive move with what you've said, if it works out like that with all of the containers and bathrooms and everything. I'm willing to see how that works. I do want to put pressure on city council. I think we all have to, in the entire neighborhood, be sure to send your information to the city, because they need to start making homes for these people. And I think boarding houses, for a lot of them, that works well, where they have a bedroom, they share a bathroom, they have breakfast, and they have dinner, and they can do what they want during the afternoon. I think we need, and some of them can get jobs too. I think we need to do that.
Thank you. I have Kathy next. Thank you. Kathy, we need you to unmute your microphone. I can't hear you. I'm sorry.
This is an answer to Bradley. Yes, we have lived right next door to a small park. It was supposed to be a bird sanctuary, and this became a sanctuary for the transients. I call them transients because I differentiate them from the homeless people who lost their homes from mortgage problems, or people, single mothers who couldn't make it, or evacuees, or whoever they are. These are people who are addicted to, whatever they're addicted to. We had the whole park got littered with food and trash and everything, and rats were coming, gnawing their way right towards us, and there were holes that they made. There was fire that they burnt up 5 feet high. It was a good thing one of the neighbors found that and extinguished it. And then there were 1 or 2 that were practicing nunchuck. You know what that is? It's a weapon. And there were a lot of throwing needles over the fence going on. I had to call the police to pick them up. And after a while, they said, we're just tired of these people. Our hands are tied. Oh yeah, the motorcycle, little kid going around, drug dealer, going from one place to another, from one tent to another. They were also selling drugs like that, and prostitute. There was a prostitute in the back who had men visiting all the time. We didn't know what it was in the beginning, but that's what was going on, because I peeked over the fence and that's what was going on. And we had bicycle parts, they were replacing, the ones that they stole, they were taking them apart and then trying to put them back together in a different way. So transients and people that do drugs, please don't bring them in close to our homes.
Thank you. I see Marlene next.
Yeah, yes, I want to answer what Keita has said. And what she brings up is an example of no control, just letting them roam wherever they are. What you're setting up sounds like you're going to have more structure. And I think that's what we need, more structure. We can't have them just roaming around. We need structure. And that's what this is. It's way different than what Keita was expressing.
So I can understand Bradley, okay? That's what I'm trying to say. And although my heart goes out to those people who are actually homeless because of, certain reasons they can't help, that's different.
Thank you so much. I'm going to call on Counselor-elect Jose Gonzalez. Counselor-elect, did you have something?
Hey, Gretchen. Yeah, quick question. I know there was some efforts to turn, I think, Pringle Hall into a shelter for, I think it was just women. I don't know if it was earlier this year, but then either the council reversed the decision after neighborhood complaints. Are they looking at that site again? And do you remember why it went down like that and why the city didn't move forward with that decision to use that space? Because this was right before the cold was coming.
Thank you. I'm afraid that was before the time that I was formally on the staff of working on the homelessness issue. I do remember that it was a vote before City Council, and City Council declined to utilize that location. And I'm not sure. I'm not sure on that one. I don't know if anybody. I'll pause real quick and see if anyone else would have anything to add to that. Kristen, go ahead.
I can speak to that. And then Lori's hand was raised too. She attended those meetings as well. The final decision had to do with the proximity to residences, that it was really nestled within a residential neighborhood with many, many more homes immediately adjacent and around that neighborhood and the park. And so it was the concerns about that proximity to residences that led to that decision. And Lori, did you want to add anything to that?
Oh, Lori, we've got you on mute. We can't hear you.
I'm still getting used to this stuff. I personally was in favor of that. There were quite a few people in favor, quite a few opposed. But what I wanted to ask is there a plan in place for a direct line to call somebody directly if they have a problem in the neighborhood, or rather than calling and getting 6 different choices of who to call and not getting an answer, is there actually a designated person within the city or within Arches where neighbors could call if there was a concern?
I might begin by saying if there's a concern of criminal activity, absolutely the Salem Police Department could be notified. And then I'm happy to put my own phone number up if there's broader policy questions. And then Lindsay, I'll see if you have anything to add.
So I want to first say it goes really back to what Kristen was saying and Marlene about we really have authority over our programs and the people enrolled in our programs. And so I think there's a little bit of conversation of each happening. We certainly are open to phone calls if there are community concerns. And in fact, we get those and funnel those all the time. And we use the wraparound service model to address any concerns that we maybe need to be aware of. But as far as a particular pathway for any concerns with any person experiencing homelessness, I'm not aware of any, but of course, anybody's always welcome to call us.
Thank you. I've got Bradley and then Corey.
Yeah, so let's see here. I kind of lost my thought there for a second. You mentioned low barrier for entry because of the vulnerable population. And I know we kind of corresponded over this by email, but now that the Arches people are here, I'm kind of curious. Can we get confirmation that there is no check for criminal backgrounds? And the reason I ask is because last summer we had a man that was staying in his van at the 50 Plus Center. Once they kicked him out, he tried staying in our parking lot. He tried staying on our street level. I was personally yelled at a number of times by this guy when I asked him to leave the property. He was a sex offender up from California, and I'm assuming, not registered when he should have been. Very violent guy. Had lots of issues with him. Very fortunate to have him gone. But will there be any background checks done? Will there be, if any of these people with serious criminal backgrounds, will they be asked to register? Will residents be notified? We do have a number of people with small children that do run around, frequent the parking lots on their skateboards and stuff. What sort of protections are we offered, as a community living by this, from people with backgrounds potentially?
Yeah, so you're absolutely right. That low barrier model does not necessarily require a particular criminal background or lack of a sex offender status for enrollment. And I will say some stats that what we do know is that roughly around 4% of people experiencing homelessness or on the street do have the sex offender status. And I do know that, in fact, I know of people personally, I can think of a few people that really want to engage. They want to enroll in services. They receive mail services here so that they can, be in compliance with what they need to do on their end. But just to answer your question, no, we won't be screening for sex offender status or criminal histories for this particular project.
Okay, and you said that there is definitely a measurable percentage of people within your organization that you've noticed that do have these sorts of criminal backgrounds?
So regarding sex offenses specifically, that is roughly 4% of people that are experiencing homelessness.
Assaults, any sort of other violent crimes that they may have.
And I think that clarification was regarding people experiencing homelessness overall as opposed to program participants, if that helps.
Well, it sounds like there's with some low barrier and there's going to be no check for it, right? I just want to confirm that there is in fact no check for that, and that if these people do come out here and that they do have a criminal background, that we will be not made aware of it, right? And that I guess that's what I'm trying to ask.
Yeah, you're right. And sorry, Gretchen. Sorry.
No,
and
it's okay.
Stats on people that are under supervision, people experiencing homelessness that we serve in this community that are under supervision, roughly 32%. So that's just system wide. That doesn't mean that people will or will not have criminal histories at this particular project. But it's just that we are serving people. It's already a vulnerable population, serving people that are elderly and they're very sick. And so we're really taking that prioritization and that preference and eliminating the other barriers based on that low barrier model and the statistics within the community.
Thank you. I have Corey and then Marlene, and I wanted to do a quick time check. We had scheduled the meeting to run until 7, and we're delighted with the engagement and interest. And so I'm thinking we could probably run until about 7:30 if that's okay with folks. And do drop off if you need to, if we're taking too much of your time, but just wanted to check in on time. Corey, go right ahead.
Hi there. Am I unmuted?
You are, I can hear you.
Wonderful. Okay. I would like to reiterate that would be a really nice thing to have as a contact, like a hotline contact with the city. One thing we've seen out in the Cascade Gateway area is that the police that do respond, when they respond, often are completely unaware of the actual city policies. We have a lot of instances where police were called for situations going on and they would just show up and say, well, they're allowed to be here. As kind of like a blanket, like they can do whatever they want, even though these folks were clearly violating the terms of being allowed to be there. And so it would be really nice if the city created a hotline like homeless specific. So there's always somebody on duty at the police station that could be like a contact who's familiar with the policies, familiar with the rules. And so, you're not getting different messages, from different people all the time.
Thank you. Okay. I'll take a look at that and the doability of that, Corey. Thank you. I've got Marlene. And then Bradley.
Thank you. I just wanted to say that I'm glad that Bradley brought up about sex offenses and that kind of thing, because I know that the media scares the heck out of people. But the facts are that whether a person is 6 years old or 90 years old, they can be on the sex offender registry. Only a very small percentage reoffend. So that is a fear, like many fears that come across media that are unsubstantiated, that facts are not included in what the real truth is. These people need a second chance when they're on a sex offender registry. They are not dangerous. They're not hiding behind bushes looking for people to offend. So it's not necessary to be afraid. Thank you.
Thank you, Bradley.
Yeah, no, I definitely can appreciate that. I was trying to find the mug shot for this particular guy in question. I remember his first name was Daryl. He was dealing drugs out of his van across the street from my house. Like I said, I was personally threatened by this guy, so I do appreciate that, the sympathy and that a lot of these, that it's being expressed for these folks. And anecdotally, like I said, it's not my experience. I work right off the Parkway, across the street from where last year there was this homeless camp that had been established in this DOT easement. We personally at our business, I was looking at our insurance loss records the last couple of years. We had about $15,000 of stuff stolen from broken into vehicles, materials from our shop. I know Western Interlock out there had people stealing power. I have been, my bike has been nearly stolen twice. I ride my bike to work every day. I see a lot of these folks running around with their bikes. So like I said, I totally understand that there's a need for compassion. It's just not, my experience has been less than great with some of these folks. And kind of with that said, and in that same vein, I think when we were talking, Gretchen, before, you mentioned that the city will not be accepting any additional liability or have any means for recompensation for any issues that should arise, but will the Arches project be assuming any additional liability? What sort of insurance is in place should something like this happen and claims arise? Will local residents be given an avenue to be made whole if any issues do arise?
Thank you. I was trying to think about how to answer that question. I mean, the short answer is no. The Community Action Agency nor the city are able to take on the financial liability should there be theft or property damage at individual homes. In some ways, it's that we're all in this together, if you will. The issue is one that faces all of us in society, and collectively we're all in on this. The federal government, the state government, the county government, our communities, our individuals, our families, all of us are kind of in this together, and we each experience great loss sometimes, and we each experience great benefit sometimes, and so I'm not sure how else to explain that. I saw Josh's hand raised. Josh, did you have a question or comment?
Yeah. So earlier, I think it was Bradley that asked, so you guys have concerns because you guys live close to across the street from where it's this housing overnight shelter is being put in place. So I live 100 yards from Hope, which is a outreach for the homeless. It is a building that they can go and get services at 8 hours a day, 8 to 10 hours a day, 5 days a week. You can drive by there after those hours and there is nobody there. If you drive by Arches, for the most part, 90% of the time after hours, there is nobody there. People want to go to where services are. And when you start talking about serving the vulnerable population, elderly women with children, they're going to go to where they can be at during the day to stay warm. And anybody that is coming off the streets to a camp or from a camp to stay in a shelter overnight, as soon as the doors open in the morning, they're gone to get back to their camps to check on their things. They're not trying to really stay overnight in these warming shelters, period. My wife and I living 100 yards from where a good amount, 100 or so folks are being served for the 8 to 10 hours a day. My wife's car's been gone through once. They took a pair of sunglasses. That's it. In 3 years of dealing with this every single day, not just during a cold season for a warming shelter. So people are not going to want to stick around in your neighborhood during the daytime when they need to go to Arches to check on their housing stuff and get plugged into services, or come right down the street from my house to Hope to get engaged in services. They're not. I would be really, really surprised and shocked if people are sticking around the corner of Silverton Road and what is that, Fairgrounds or whatever right there during the daytime. That's just not
Right. No, and
typical
that's
thought.
I guess that's a big concern of mine, is because, there's not a lot of services to transport people around, so that puts them walking through where we're at. I know my personal, backyard abuts the bus stop. I get a lot of trash thrown over the
Yeah.
wall. Like I said, and I've seen homeless people sleeping in our planters, had to call the police. So yeah, I mean, I see this, and to me, what I see is, we're bringing 65 people, whereas, really they had no reason to be out
25.
here other. Is it 25 or 65? Because they said 20 tents, 20 vehicles, and 25 people indoors. So is it 25 or is it 65?
Yeah,
I
the
think
project begins with the 25 people indoors, and then I think if resources allow, could expand to additional 20 to 25 vehicle camping sites, and then 20 to 25 managed tent camping sites. For that total possibility, that's what the site is physically capable of if resources allow, but it would begin with the indoor.
and also just real quick, so Bradley, if you and the other lady that live in that neighborhood, just to extend the services that I have personally to offer, you can look up Be Bold Street Ministries online and get both myself and Matt's phone number. If you're ever having issues with homeless in your neighborhood, please call us. We would love. I know Arches has an outreach team. It's what we do every day. We would love to come, and if somebody doesn't know how to get to Arches, get them from your neighborhood to where services are readily available. So there is people that like care and want to help, not only the people on the streets, but you as a community member, as a homeowner, to help rectify the situation so that you guys feel safe and are happy. And then the individuals, our friends, our neighbors on the streets are getting to the services and the things that they need as well. So it's a well-rounded service rather than just one-sided.
Thank you. I think Lori is next.
I'll make this short. Thanks, Josh. One of the things is too, there's people who live in homes who have addiction problems or are thieves or go out shopping for stuff too. So the Salem police, when they do the neighborhood, when they come into the neighborhood associations and talk about how to prevent different things, one of the things that happens is, always keep your car doors locked. Don't leave stuff sitting in there that thieves can see, but also close your curtains at night. Thieves go window shopping. And that's the main thing I always think of with the police is, oh, it's dark now, I better close my curtains. Because, that's how people see things that they want to come back and get later. So the homeless people aren't necessarily, or some homeless people, because many homeless people are no different from you and I, and they don't steal from people. And no matter how desperate they are for different things, even if you offer it to them, one gal, she sobs when people give her stuff. and she would never steal anything from anyone. And a lot of folks are like that. There are some, of course, the same as any population that do. But there's also people that live in homes next to us and in our neighborhoods too that are doing stuff all the time, whether it's boat trailers, big trailers, and they've got big cars and trucks that they're hauling stuff off with. So, but I also think I'd be willing to go there in that program at night. I'm great with de-escalation stuff. Because of immune stuff, I really don't feel like maybe I should be doing some of the indoor stuff, but I feel perfectly safe to do outdoor stuff, and I'd be glad to be outside there and help with things too. And that's something too for maybe some folks in your neighborhood association. I know my neighborhood association in the Scan neighborhood, we have a lot of people involved who do work in the warming centers. They volunteer with arches, they volunteer with other programs. So it's a good way of getting involved too, and learning how things are done, seeing how things are done, and, you know, helping it, you know, just be part of it too.
Lori, thank you. We'll take one last question from Bradley and then we'll wrap up. Bradley, go ahead.
Oh, sorry, I didn't realize the hand raised. No, I do just out of curiosity. You said that there's appeals you can make to the city council. Is there a group of people, or can we get some contact information for the folks to whom we need to make appeals?
The city, yes, certainly. So city council has a pretty easily accessible email address. If you have your pen and paper handy, you could type in as an email address, citycouncil@cityofsalem.net. And that email address immediately emails our mayor as well as all of our members of city council and some additional staff as well. So if that helps, that can certainly be a point of contact for you for the decision. They have the ultimate deciding authority.
Okay, and that was, make sure I got that right, citycouncil@cityofsalem.net.
That's right. I'll also, in closing, before I turn it over to Seth, I want to offer, my name is Gretchen Bennett again, and I'm serving as kind of a homeless liaison role for the city, and I work out of the mayor's office. And my email is gbennett, GBENNETT, @cityofsalem.net. And my direct phone number is 503-540-2371. You've heard a lot about warming this evening, and there's a fabulous website, the Salem Warming Network, where you can get more information about that strategy and about how to volunteer. Also, the Community Action Agency and the Arches Project have great websites that offer a lot of data and information about the subject if you'd like more information. Let's see, I really want to appreciate everybody's participation, and I'm going to turn it back to Seth now. Thank you.
Yeah, same. Thank you for everyone for attending. I think it was a really thoughtful conversation. Thank you to Gretchen and Lindsay for taking a lot of questions. And I think, you know, what I come away with this is that this project is in pretty capable hands, has been pretty well thought out. You know, and I also just wanted to say then that in this conversation, I think we also talked about bigger homelessness issues. And the library is holding a series right now, a focus on homelessness. So it's a 3-part session. The first session was on October 27th, but there are 2 more coming up on November 17th and December 15th are 2 more sessions. So if you look at the City of Salem's library website, you can find more information on that. And I guess that is it for the evening. Thank you for everyone for attending. Please, you have Gretchen's information. If you have further questions, you can reach out to her. But otherwise, or Gretchen, do you want to, I think you're the one who can close this out.
All right, we'll do. Lindsay, you unmuted yourself. Did you have anything
I just wanted to thank everybody. Thank everyone for your time. Thank you, Gretchen and Seth, for your facilitation. I really appreciate it. And again, please feel free to email me and contact me if you have follow-ups after tonight. Thank you so much, everybody. Have a good evening.